Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Frozen Frenzy edition of Morning Cup of Hockey presented by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. So use our code DAILY365. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the episode. We won't compliment the St. Louis Blues until that happens. J-Rock, shout out to you. Colby's already ruining the lead and coming at me in the chat I see on YouTube. And yes, it is true. I did get dumped again last night at around 10:45 Eastern. I received a text that said, I don't want to hurt you. I think we're looking for different things. And that's how we're starting the show today.
It's not you, it's me, I promise. It's not you, it's me, I promise. That's the best part. Hey, listen, man. You just got to stop coming on too strong, like our chat says. But obviously, Olivia and Catherine, they're there to support you. They're always there to support you. We've got our loving crew in the chat. But yeah, what a way to start a day. What a way to start one of the better days of the year for hockey.
It's a good distraction.
I gotta say, like, when you look at the way that they're doing the Frozen Frenzy, and I think I saw Butchie tweeted that it's the only day of the season where you have 16 games. I just, again, I'm gonna keep banging on this door and banging this drum and saying that they need to start staggering starts. And look, I understand sometimes there's 5 games on in a night, 6 games on in a night, and let's say 3 to 4 of them are all 7 p.m. starts. Like, why can't it be 7, 7:10, 7:20? Like, I'm not saying I need you to do it 30 minutes, an hour, whatever, but if you have 3 7 p.m. starts and you stagger them all by 10 minutes, that pretty much means that you're never going to have to sit there and watch 17 or 18 minutes of an intermission. And it gives you an opportunity to see all games and see more out-of-market games. And look, I understand they're looking for consistency for players, for schedules, but times have changed. 90% of us are watching these games on ESPN Plus. Especially out of market games. It's not like it used to be. Now, granted, there's some markets where people can't even watch their own home games, but that's a different story for a different day. But anyways, excited. Sorry you got dumped last night, Johnny. We'll give you our Out West Worst Team of the Week when we get there. Maybe we'll even throw the texts up so people can actually see how you're getting dumped.
We're not throwing the text up.
But why don't we bring Frank into the show? I know you want to talk about our favorite friends at Proraso, and then we'll bring Frank in and we'll talk to him a little bit about where he is, what he's up to, some of the Amazon stuff from last night and last Thursday that he's a part of. And also kind of check in with what's going on around the league.
I had something I wanted to mention about the Frozen Frenzy too, but I guess we can save that for towards the end of the show. We can talk about it when we preview some of the games that we're going to watch tonight. But before we bring Frank on, I want to shout out our friends and sponsors at Proraso, the most complete choice for shaving and beard care, made in Italy since 1948. Proraso has been a staple of Italian culture and barbershops globally for 4 generations. So get 15% off at Proraso-USA.com with our promo code Hockey15 in all caps, Hockey15. That's the first time I've messed up that read. And obviously my game is thrown off. And Frank, I can see you smirking already. So what do you want to say?
No, I'm actually heartbroken for you. So yeah.
I think most people don't know this about Frank, but he has a big heart and he's a very loving guy. I get to witness Frank with his kids frequently. And he's a big softy, Frank. He really is. Frank is a lover, not a fighter, but he's
emphasis on big. Yes.
Well, I was going to say soft, but we'll take big. But anyways, Frank, you're not in your studio right now. I know you do spend a lot of nights on the road. I think this one's a little bit different. And so I'll kick it over to you. Where are you? What are you up to? As that portfolio of work that you do and you bring to the hockey world is ever growing.
I'm in Chicago. I'm here for Blackhawks Canucks tonight. I'm always wearing multiple hats. This morning I'm wearing my Morning Cup of Hockey hat, and then I'll take that off and I'll do some more radio, and then I'll go to the rink for morning skates and I'll collect a story for Daily Face-Off. Yesterday I did a 26-minute a Frankly Speaking podcast with Connor Bedard. And then tonight I'll put on a different hat and I'll contribute to the Chicago Sports Network broadcast of the game. And so there's always a lot going on. Just, little different things here and there that I'm chipping into. You mentioned Amazon and their Thursday night coast to coast show, and, doing some Chicago Sports Network stuff. So there's always a lot on the go. And, I think tonight this frenzy is going to be fascinating. I do have a comment though about what you were saying about the staggered start times. You are a parent, right? And so now think about staggering start times and consistency with fans who need to get up and go to work in the morning. It's that, to me, is a big reason why is fans love and crave consistency. They like knowing that whether you're a 7:00 team or a 7:30 team, whatever it is, they like getting the game started as early as possible, and they like getting out of there and getting home. So when you start to drag those out and make them later, even if it's by 15 minutes, a half hour, 45 minutes, whatever it is, kids got to get up and go to school in the morning.
Yeah.
So I think that's something to keep in mind that you guys didn't mention.
Well, but let me ask you
one
this,
thing
Frank.
too about that. Okay.
I was just gonna say, just in regards to
seniority.
You'll get your chance. All right, you sit in the corner. You'll get your chance.
Yeah.
But Frank, what time does a 7 p.m. game really drop the puck at anyway?
7:08.
Okay, so why don't we have a game that actually drops the puck at 7, and then a game that actually drops the puck at 7:08? That's the thing, is they don't even start when they say they're going to start.
I think you guys look at it through a really narrow lens. You said 90% of fans you think watch the games on
out
ESPN
of market.
Plus.
Out of market.
Whoa.
I don't.
This also wasn't a we thing. That was a he thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think they do. I think most fans only watch their own market and don't go game to game to game around the league.
Yeah, see, I would disagree with that, because I think now that people have the opportunity to easily do that, I think more and more people, I mean, I know the people that watch our show and are in the chat on Morning Cup of Hockey and on DFO Live, they're pretty up to date and
we've got
watching
some of the best fans
everywhere.
in the league.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, your
casual
standard hockey fan that lives in Minnesota, or maybe that's a bad place to pick, lives in Pittsburgh. They're not watching games around the league. They're just watching the Penguins, and that's it.
All right, so I'm selfish, and I really only care about what's good for me, and so that's the hill that I'll die on.
Well, can I the one thing I wanted to say is, for me, the staggered start times, I would like more in general, not on the Frozen Frenzy. Like the Frozen Frenzy, I feel like is the one time where you don't even need the staggered start, because there are so many games on in one night. And if we're trying to make it like NFL Red Zone, it's not like Red Zone starts their games at different times. You have the 1 o'clock slate, and then you have like the 4:05 and 4:25. That's really it. They're just bouncing around from every game. It's not like they do staggered starts. They're just showing highlights from every game as they're happening, which is what the whole premise of the frenzy really is. It's not about the staggered starts, in my opinion, right? It's about showing the action as it's happening, like going from power play to power play, from New York to LA and to Toronto, and that's what it's really about to me. Like if you wanted to do staggered starts, make it a normal thing versus the Frozen Frenzy thing, where like you can have, an East Coast game at 7, then 7:15, then 7:30 on like your typical Wednesday, and then, a 10 and a 10:30 later in the night, like a 5-game slate.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, we obviously get off on a little tangent here.
Yeah.
Look, we appreciate the perspective, Frank, and I'm not taking any children to school yet, and I know you are, so that is important perspective. You mentioned yesterday that you got a chance to sit down and talk to Connor Bedard for Frankly Speaking. Now, before I ask you about that, I do want to make mention of this. Your last Frankly Speaking podcast is out and available right now. The one you did with Glenn Heffron, the USHL president and commissioner, which was 50 minutes. And I did get an opportunity to preview that and hear a little bit of that. And I got to tell you, like, one of the more interesting interviews that I've listened to in a very, very long time. So make sure you download and you check out Frankly Speaking. You can get it on our YouTube page with Daily Faceoff. Or you can get it pretty much anywhere where you get those types of things. So I just wanted to mention that, Frank, before I ask you, like, what was Connor Bedard like? I know he's done a couple of things, obviously at this point, been in the league for a year, but it's first time, I think. Is it your first time getting to sit down and talk to him one-on-one? What were your impressions?
To be honest, I've done thousands of interviews with players over my career, quite literally that number. And I don't ever get nervous, but this one I did have a tinge of nerves just because I think he's a tough nut to crack. I think he's someone that at 19 is super polished and guarded. He's been sort of trained for this for a long time. I mean, this is a guy who at 17 was selling out NHL-sized arenas in Western Canada. And he's someone that has had a spotlight on him really since he was kind of 12 years old. And sometimes those can be difficult interviews. I came away really impressed on a number of different fronts. I hope I got him to open up on a few things. And what I was really blown away with was the way his brain works. We talked a lot about his off season and summer training, and the way that he views the ice is so different than anyone else that I've talked to. He views it as like putting a puzzle together, and he called it, quote, problem solving. When you have the puck, how do you get out of certain situations? When you don't have the puck, how do you find, open ice? And the way he thinks about it, the way that he's put in the work to go do it. He's an authentic, true hockey nerd. He doesn't have any other hobbies really. He watches some football, but this is someone that thinks, talks, eats, sleeps, breathes hockey 24/7. And you would think at times that would be overwhelming. And I said, like, hey, like the guys on your team say you need to get some hobbies. And he's like, all I've ever wanted to do is be a hockey player.
Yeah.
Like this is it for him. This is the end all be all. And that is probably a huge part of what drives him to success. Like we've talked about this before. I'd say there's probably 20% of the league that loves hockey the way Connor Bedard does. And there's 60% of the league that just does it because it's a great paycheck and they're really good at it. And
they like it, but they're not in love with it.
Yeah.
Correct.
Which is kind of the problem that you run into, Johnny, with your dating life. It's, kind of.
Well, no, but in seriousness though, like I think it's Colby, you talked about it. I listened to your show with Ben Holden yesterday. Like you talked about it. It's really hard to train your brain to do everything that you can to win. Especially when you're on a team like Chicago to start, where listen, and I'm saying Bedard individually is different, but like if you're not seeing results from a team base, sometimes you can lose that focus. And a kid like Bedard, who, came into a situation last year where they lost a lot, and for him to continue to just have the drive to want to make himself better every single day. Like, Colby, I'm just going to quote you directly, like, because I thought it was very true. A lot of players tell themselves that I want to get better every day, but not every single player truly believes it. There are only the select few in the NHL.
I don't know. I think most of them actually don't believe it, but guys
I agree.
like Bedard do believe it, which is why, yes, they have God.
That was a great thing that you said yesterday.
They're built differently, and you could put Crosby and Kane and like most of those types of guys that I've seen are built like that.
And he's like, so they had a total day off Sunday, and they watched, I'm sure he sat around and watched football, but he's the type of player that while there's no staff in the facility, no one there's not even ice available to him. He'll come in on a Sunday and he'll shoot pucks, stick handle. He'll do stuff for an hour and a half. He'll sit in the sauna. No, everyone else is off. Everyone's relaxing. Everyone's chilling out, and he's in there shooting pucks for an hour.
Yeah.
That's what he does.
I honestly heard that Luke Richardson is telling the equipment guys that you have to take the steel out of his skates. Like and I know that he says it as a joke, but I actually think it's like, I think he's being serious. Luke has kind of a little bit of a dry sense of humor, and I think he's actually serious. That's like how they keep this kid off the ice. They take the steel out of his skates.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that part's true. I think that was, like you said, tongue in cheek, but the point is, this is all he wants to do. And that's like, to have that kind of love of the game and dedication, like to then, my goal for the show was to really kind of try and tap into that. Like, how does Connor Bedard's brain work? And hopefully part of that will come across to you when you listen.
I will add though too, Frank, sometimes with the younger guys, isn't it kind of a weird feeling when you feel like they're more nervous to talk to you than you are to them? Like I remember, kind of first getting into the industry a little bit, and I was talking to NHL players, and I'd be so nervous just to talk to NHL players. And then, I first experienced it at the draft in Nashville when you actually came on the show I was doing, Frank, where I was talking to these young kids who just got drafted, and you could tell like they're very nervous to talk to NHL media for the first time. And that made me like nervous for them in a sense where I wanted to make them feel as comfortable as possible. I don't know if you experienced that at all with a younger guy like Bedard.
He was like, I think there was no nerves on his part at all. I think he's just pretty guarded and private for the most part and doesn't share a whole lot. So the hard part is trying to like find some common ground to, make someone feel comfortable to share details about. It's almost like secrets of like what makes you so good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, look, I know I'm looking forward to seeing that on Frankly Speaking. And, it's actually kind of a perfect time to remind people, if you're not subscribed to the Daily Faceoff YouTube page, I'll give our team a lot of credit on the back end. They've been turning videos out left and right. All of our shows, then they break it up and they grab interviews from our shows. Today we'll talk to Frank here for 20 or so minutes, and that will get put on there. So if you're not subscribed to the Daily Faceoff YouTube page, you want to get on there and subscribe so you can see when, this interview with Connor Bedard comes out and you don't forget about it because it just populates on your field, on your page. You've got DFO Live, you've got our show, you've got Down to Earth, all across the network. We're fantasy hockey, starting goalies with Carter Hutton. Like there's just so much good content, out there. I know a lot of you guys play fantasy hockey. Our guys do an amazing job with that as well. So, give this episode a like, give us a subscribe across our pages, and really stick with us as, we continue to push things out. So Frank, I do want to pivot a little bit, and we appreciate the insight into, you being out in Chicago, and we'll definitely have to get Chicago Sports Network on tonight and catch you between periods. But, there's a couple of goaltending situations around the National Hockey League right now for teams that, is just creating noise. And, I'm curious, this early in the season, you've got a general manager and a president out in Colorado that are pretty seasoned. They've won, they've been around. So I can't expect a panic type of move. That's not the only, that's one goalie situation that I'm a little bit curious about, Frank, to know is that something that, they're going to look to address? And then the other one, and then I'll give it over to you, is Pittsburgh, and what are they going to do with Christian Jarry? And I was watching, I don't know what game I was watching, and they were talking about the fact that, they heard a rumor that they're testing the market on Jarry. So, where do we sit with some of these goalie quote unquote controversies? Maybe even throw Detroit into that, group.
Yeah, so let's start in Colorado. Unequivocally, Alexander Georgiev, I'm told, is the Avs guy. I've asked all the same questions that you would think are logical in this situation. This is a guy who's got a long track record and sample size now of playing subpar. I mean, 63 games last year in the regular season, another 11 in the playoffs for a total of 74 at an 897 save percentage. Not good enough. This year's been even worse. And he's clearly not giving them a chance to win. That said, Capo Kakinen is finally in town. His immigration hell is over after he was sort of man without country for a little while waiting for his visa. So he's in town. I'd expect that he's going to get a crack at some point. It might not be right away because, again, he was off the ice probably for a week, I think. So that's a situation to watch. Here's the thing about Colorado in general. Whether it's forwards, defense, goalie, you name it, they really don't have the flexibility to go out and do something. Even if they want to try and move and get a goalie, they've got some serious cap considerations that they can't go out and replace any of these guys that are injured. Nichushkin is in town. He can begin skating and working his way back. November 13th is the date that he is eligible to return to the Avs lineup. But you still haven't set a date yet for Gabriel Landeskog. You've been missing a ton of other pieces throughout the start of this season. Lehkonen, Drouin, Devon Taves. I mean, the list has gone on, and unfortunately for the Avs, they need to retain all of that cap space so that they can then activate these guys. It's not like they can go out and spend it. So they've known about this cap crunch. They knew that it would be a really tough start to the season. I don't think they envisioned those other three guys in Lekin and Drouin and Taves going down. And that's just compounded the problem and made it that much tougher. Right now, to me, the Avs are a really tough team to watch with two or three excellent players. And their depth has eroded in such a significant way that it's going to be an uphill climb for this team to get back in the race in the short term view. And the goaltending has just made it that much harder.
I have a two-parter to build off of that. And the second part, I'm actually going to go to Jeremiah because Jeremiah had a good question in the chat. But with that, Frank, those three teams in the bottom five right now, Colorado, Edmonton, and Nashville, I don't think anyone would have expected those three to be in the bottom five of the league. Which one to you is the biggest surprise of those three? And then Jeremiah in the chat actually did his own hashtag Ask Cuppa. I have a question for Frank. Which GM panics first with the poor starts?
So the biggest surprise to me is Nashville. I just thought with especially adding 100 new goals and all the vets that they have, plus UC Saros and net. I first off, I didn't envision them struggling to score. And second, I certainly didn't see them giving up as many chances and opportunities as they have. Andrew Burnett has been really critical of the way that they've played, quote, fire wagon hockey. That's not going to work. And that part has certainly left me with an eyebrow raised. I mean, what they're battling now in Nashville is history. In the salary cap era, no team has started 0-5. No team has gotten 0 points in their first 10 available and gone on to make the playoffs. I think the last time it happened was 1995. So it's been a long time. I think there's been 5 teams in history that have done it different times in the NHL. But this is a team that so much more was expected of, not just internally, but also externally. Like I had the Preds finishing second in their division. This should be a really good team given all that they've gone out and added. And I know that Burnett has said, oh, this is going to take a while for this to gel and for everyone to find chemistry with each other. But I don't know that anyone quite envisioned it being this long. And thanks to Jeremiah for the question, which team panics first? I got to tell you, like I'm looking through the standings right now. I think maybe the team that's probably going to feel the most pressure to do something and shake things up is Detroit. Also because we haven't seen a lot of in-season moves from Steve Yzerman to really improve this team. I'd say Detroit and Buffalo are two teams on that front to watch.
Yeah, Johnny has been, he said he doesn't expect Kevin Adams to get to Halloween. Is that what
Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving. And I know we're just riffing when he says something like that, but
no, but listen, part of it's real.
How long could that leash be? I mean, I have a hard time looking at what seems to be a team that is just getting worse and just getting year after year. Like, where is the improvement in Buffalo?
Can I add one comment quick before? Just because we've been asked whenever we talk about Buffalo, I think people in the chat are always like, they're young, give them time. But this organization doesn't have any more time. Time is what they've had a ton of. 14 years almost without making the playoffs. This isn't like a rebuild anymore. It's like let's just get in the playoffs. I feel like we're giving them time because of their youth, but at what point do you just need to have some sort of success?
Honestly, the biggest concern for me in Buffalo, it's not even roster construction wise or roster. I mean, Johnny, you watched a lot of New Jersey Devils hockey last year.
Yeah.
With as sloppy as that team was and the same repeated mistakes that they made time and time again, I'm still shocked that Lindy Ruff was the selection in Buffalo. And it's not just that he was the pick, but also that they didn't even see fit to interview anyone else for the position. That part to me is incredibly surprising. And when I watch that team now, I generally think it's more of a structure thing than anything else. Like I don't think they're a bad team. I have real questions about their decision and thought process to bring in that coach at that period of time. And when you ask about the leash on Kevin Adams, like, I think they also made a mistake previously. His predecessor, Jason Botterill, got 3 years. That's way too short. Kevin Adams is now in year 5. He understands that it's go time. I also feel like Kevin Adams, I don't want to say has a different relationship, but certainly having worked on the business side with the Pegula family before, it feels like there's probably a longer rope than what his predecessor experienced.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Buffalo to me, it's like everyone's on the same page, right? Where everyone just like feels bad for them at this point, right? Because you want to see the fine sports fans in Buffalo have a little bit of a taste of playoff hockey. Because listen, that's one of the best sports cities I think you can find as far as loyalty and passion goes, right?
Yeah, I feel for the fans more than anything.
Mhm.
That's a proud hockey market. It's one of the great hockey markets in the league, let alone the country. And
Yeah,
they really haven't had a lot to hang their hat on. You mentioned it. This is 13 years. This would be 14 without the
14,
playoffs. It's too long. And I think what's disappointing is I see so many of these building blocks here, and I'm enamored with that top 4 defense. I truly, I think it's in the top 3 in the entire league. I think it's on par with Boston in the East. And I just think that should be the core and backbone of this team. And when you can't defend with that group of defensemen, I don't look at that and say that's a personnel issue. I really don't.
Do you see Devin Levi being a trade piece? If they have UPL signed for another 3-4 years, I believe he signed a 4-year extension this summer, and Levi is not really their go-to guy right now, why not move him?
Who wants
Because
him?
other teams that need goaltending would want a guy like that.
Yeah, but he hasn't proven that he can play in the National Hockey League. So if you need a goalie, why would that be your target?
Why would Buffalo even want to move him? Like, we know more than
I'm
ever
just
that
thinking
this
if they
league
have
is not a it's not a 60 game league for starting goalies. UPL hasn't shown that he could even play that many games yet. And I think you'd want Devin Levi getting as many reps as possible, as many games. Like, there is nothing wrong with having a great young tandem where you feel comfortable with either guy in the net. That's the mark of true security for a team. I don't even understand the incentive for
well, they
Buffalo to
have
want to consider
UPL
something like that.
they have UPL signed for another 4 years at 4.75. And listen, I was just like kind of thinking out loud. And if there's
Just to give a little context here, this was who he picked to win the Calder Trophy
no,
last
but I'm
year.
saying if
Just
there's a
to
panic
provide some
move,
context.
if there's a panic move in Buffalo to make something happen mid-season, I feel like he'd be the guy.
How would but what value does he have? Look at his numbers.
No,
in the
I think he
National Hockey
does.
League.
I think Johnny's right. I think he does have
Yeah.
value. That's not where your team's going to get a jolt from.
Well, I'm not saying to get another goalie. I'm saying to find a cheaper forward. Their blue line's fine, but if you could find maybe a $2 million, $3 million forward that can help you score.
Goalies never have the value that you think they do. And beyond that, just in conversation with managers around the league, like, I think more than ever, so many people are convinced, so many teams and franchises are convinced that they can get just as good goaltending or close to it, spending a lot less. Every summer, there's like 15 to 20 NHL legit goalies available that can give you a 900 or 903 or 905 save percentage in any given year, depending on the strength of the team in front of them. And they're not going to go crazy to acquire even a younger guy that they think might be it.
Well, we will certainly see how it plays out when we see what Igor Shesterkin gets. We see where a team, whether it's the Rangers or he becomes a UFA, and it's another team like the Vegas Golden Knights that reaches and does give him some massive payday. So, Frank, I know you've got some stuff you got to do here. The last thing I just wanted to bring up with you, and I think Johnny and I were both kind of curious about this. Amazon has thrown its hat into the ring for hockey. They've got that Monday night game in Canada. Unfortunately, we don't have access to that game here in the States. Even last night, we got the viewing from the Tampa Bay, home viewing, which is now, I guess, called FanDuel Sportsnet. I guess it changed from Bally's to FanDuel overnight. But I know you're also a part of the Thursday Amazon show, which is viewable on NHL Network and here in the US. So just out of curiosity, what are the early returns on the Amazon situation? I know their pregame show is a little bit different. They're not really doing a pregame show. It's just sort of a scene set, I guess, for 45 minutes of the stadium. Personally, I think that's kind of weird, but I do love Amazon getting involved in hockey. I think the more networks, the more reach, more people working, more different looks, different people's ideas. Like personally, I love it, but I'm curious, what are your early returns on it?
Yeah, I think it's great for the game for all the reasons that you mentioned. Like the best products come from competition, and when you have people pushing the envelope, wanting to try new things, like I love the scene set. Like if you're at home and you're craving that sort of pregame experience, what's the vibe like in the arena? What's the music look like? Who's taking part in warmups? Who's out? Did someone just, did something weird just happen in warmups? Like the fact that you could get a little bird's eye view into that without leaving your couch, you sort of get more of that stadium experience at home, which no one's really thought to do before. And it's like, okay,
is anybody narrating it, Frank? Like, is there somebody who's narrating it, or it's just sights and sounds?
So I didn't see the first one last night, but like, I just love that they've got a whole list of new ideas that they're going to continue to roll out to try it. And so, look, not everything's going to be perfect. Not everything's going to be a home run. But the fact that there's increased competition, the fact that there's new ideas and voices, and also just new outlets. Look at the disparity in a really good way between Turner and ESPN in the US. Mm-hmm. Two totally different game broadcasts and shows, two totally different flavors, and they both have their significant strengths that I think complement each other well. I think, adding that to the mix in Canada is going to be hugely important.
How often will you be appearing on it?
Just Thursdays, coast to coast, one segment. Mm-hmm. Just trying to drop some insider nuggets and just a small little fourth line right wing role.
Yeah. So every Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. I had one more. If you can do another 2-3 minutes, would that be okay?
Sure.
Because this article came out on Daily Faceoff, and Colby and I haven't discussed it yet. It was, it's time to say that Anze Kopitar is better than Patrice Bergeron. And Colby and I were both kind of talking before going live here this morning that the East Coast people for sure have bias toward Bergeron, but the numbers are definitely closer than most people would think without looking at them.
They're better.
Kopitar's?
Yeah, way better.
Bergeron, I think, has 5 more goals right now, is probably like a little over a plus 100 and change as far as plus minus goes. Kopitar has more than like 160 assists than Bergeron had, but Kopitar's also played in more games already than Bergeron did.
How many
80-point
seasons? How many 70 or 80-point seasons did Patrice Bergeron have? How many times did he hit 90?
Yeah,
I mean, the all of the numbers clearly skew toward Kopitar, and I think it's a fantastic talking point because, for one, not many people in the East stay up late to watch the Kings on a night-to-night basis, and two, he may not have as many Selke trophies, but the fact that he's won 2 gives you some indication of how complete of a player Kopitar is. And by the way, he's also aged really well. Not that Bergeron didn't, of course, but like Kopitar looks just as strong this year. I mean, opening night hat trick for him with the Kings. Like, he's not slowing down. And like, first off, surefire first ballot Hall of Famer. And I think personally, when making the comparison, like he should have a clear edge production wise over Bergeron.
The only thing I'd argue though,
the assists, but I mean, if we're talking in completion of a player, like, Bergie's a plus 289, and I know plus minus is not always an individual. It's a team. It's a little bit individual, a little bit team, right? I don't even know how much people use plus minus anymore now because of all the other statistics that you can actually get. But, the other thing too, that I do think you have to take into account is Kopitar's got 2 cups. Bergie has 1. I know Bergie has lost a couple of finals, so he's been to three at least. maybe there's 4. Maybe they lost
No,
in the final 3 times 3. So,
yeah.
but he's played a lot more playoff games. And the only thing I would say is he's kind of been the backbone of the Boston Bruins consistency. And
who has more cups?
I started with he has more cups. I did. Yeah. And you trade your soul for cups. And that has to be heavily weighted. I'm just playing a little bit of devil's advocate in the consistency of the Patrice Bergeron teams never having down years, never having drop-offs. Again, I'm not disagreeing with you, Frank. I'm playing a
part
little
of that
bit
just comes down to your GM. Part of it comes down to like plus minus could come down to your goaltending. Like, look how strong the Bruins goalies have been.
They have
for the entirety of
Jonathan Quick.
tenure.
And Jonathan Quick was the goalie for most of Anze Kopitar. So that's a, you're talking about pretty elite goaltending both ways. I was surprised when I looked up the numbers when I did see this article on Daily Faceoff, because like my initial gut was like Bergie, and then I start looking at the numbers and I'm like, maybe I'm being a little biased here, as it is honestly kind of how I felt about it. And then you're like, okay, wow, but I don't think it's clear cut. Like, I don't think you're sitting here and you're like, this guy is over here and this guy's over here. We're talking about 2 first ballot Hall of Famers who are incredibly gifted in all 3 zones. Like, there isn't a weakness in either guy's game. Some of the more complete hockey players we've had over the last 20 years.
Vic did just text me, though. Imagine Kopitar with Pastrnak and Bergeron. Like, that'd be nasty.
Sure.
I do think Bergeron has had.
I could play with Pasta.
It's an uncomfortable it's an uncomfortable argument because no one wants to slag the other.
Bergeron,
right?
Mr.
Like,
Perfect. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like he is like maybe one of the most perfect players of all time in Patrice Bergeron. Everyone loves him, but I'm just looking at the offensive heights that Kopitar got to each season. Bergeron has never sniffed that level.
I don't know if I agree with that, though. If you look at the goal scoring, particularly, like Bergeron's goal scoring is way more consistent than Kopitar's. Like, Bergeron never had less than 20 goals in a season.
And that's what we're talking about, his teams being more consistently in the playoffs. He's played 75 more playoff games. I mean, that's 3 full years worth of playoffs, really closer to 5 when you take into account that you're not going to the Cup every year. Look, all I'm saying is I don't think it's a super obvious Anze Kopitar. Like, I would argue the other side, although, I think you could make the argument, and I'm willing to listen to anyone's argument on this and not think you're a moron. Like,
there's no dog in this fight for any of us, really. I feel like.
Well, I mean,
maybe
look, I'm a little more biased because I've been in the locker room with Bergie and I've seen his, up close and personal. I've seen his aura and everything he does and he brings. But it's a great argument. It really is. I mean, even in the chat, every other person in our chat right now has one and the other, and a reason, and good reasons.
I mean, here's another thing too that no one has really brought up. The ice time for these guys is a pretty big disparity. Like, Kopitar plays like 4 minutes more per night than Bergeron did in his career.
Which is like 8 shifts when you take, 6 to 8 shifts a night more.
But I'm thinking
Bergeron's career average was
4,000 more minutes.
Yeah.
4,000 more minutes is a lot.
Yeah.
4,000 more opportunities to make mistakes. 4,000 more opportunities that you could have a minus. 4,000, like, it's just, it is a little different. And I'm not again, not knocking down Bergeron's candidacy at all. The point of the story is, I think, and the point of this argument is, Kopitar has been way better than a lot of people would realize. That's really what it all comes down to. It's not knocking Bergeron. It's like, holy smokes, Kopitar is amazing.
Until 2 years ago, probably, I was not staying up late to watch the LA Kings. Until I started working in hockey and having to pay close attention to hockey, I've started watching the LA Kings, but not nearly as much over the last decade.
Hey Vic, can you throw J-Rock's comment up on the screen here so everybody can see it as we say goodbye to Frank?
Way to go, J-Rock.
Frank, look, have a good day today. We really appreciate the insight into Connor Bedard. I can't wait till the Chicago Blackhawks are really good again and Connor Bedard is like playing on these big Sunday afternoon games and these big moments in the playoffs, and got a lot of faith that Kyle Davidson's going to put the right team on the ice in order to get them to this point. So enjoy your day. Good luck on TV tonight. We'll be looking for you. We appreciate it. We'll see you next Tuesday. Make sure you catch Frank's Daily Face-Off Live today. Actually, Tyler and Johnny Laz making his DFO co-host debut. So that's exciting. Frank, have a good day, man. We appreciate your time.
See
Thanks,
you guys.
Frank.
Enjoy the frenzy.
All right. Good stuff with Frank.
Yeah, that kind of took. I will say this, like, I'm really looking forward to that episode of Frankly Speaking, because I'm just like, we see how reserved Sidney Crosby kind of was, especially early in his career, and it's kind of how a lot of these guys are, and so it's always nice when a guy's willing to sit down in a little more of a relaxed setting and have a conversation. And I'll be looking forward to that. So make sure you're subscribed to the Daily Face-Off YouTube page so you don't miss it. If you're here with us in this episode, give us a like. Those go a long way with the algorithms. We're still trying to get ourselves back into midseason form here with having taken the long summer off. So we do appreciate all that. And yeah, for Johnny, like it's a big night for the National Hockey League. Last year, Frozen Frenzy got rave reviews. We had Butchie on last week to give us his thoughts on how they could potentially improve it. And then, obviously he talked about maybe getting more players to make appearances on the Frozen Frenzy. We'll see. I don't know if we know what to expect different this year, but we will see, obviously, here in the next 12 hours or so.
Well, let me ask you, like, what would you want out of this? Like, what if you could change one thing about the Frozen Frenzy, what would it be? Are you a big red zone person? Like, I'm not the biggest red zone guy.
No.
But I do think there's something to be said about, like, going from power play to power play. Like, if there's a power play in a game, like, that's where you go.
Yeah,
like,
well, we want to see scoring. We want to see offense. So of course, like, we want to see when those moments are happening. And so I'm not a red zone person at all. I've never been interested in that. Generally speaking, like, I like to watch the Eagles play, and then, I'll watch the 4 p.m. game on Fox. And then Sunday Night Football's on in the house, but, we're not live or dying it. So we'll see. Like, I don't know. I would think that they're evolving and they're going to do some things differently. But this is it's a lot. It's 16 games. So I think it's good that they have this, because I'm a believer in the fact that, like, if you really want to watch a game, like, I know people watch 3-4 games at once with different screens.
Yeah.
I have a hard time really truly watching a game if there's 3 games on, because I'm looking at all 3 games.
You're flipping around. Yeah.
Well, and I'm just looking at all 3 games, and I'm not dialed on what's actually happening. There's not really a part of me that's like, oh, this is why that goal happened. Like, I don't see the break, the mistake, right? I don't see what's really going on. So I don't enjoy it as much in that regard.
But that's also not how most people are obtaining.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah,
totally.
Everyone's sitting there like this, scrolling Twitter, looking at the game, kind of going back and forth between your phone and the hockey, right? Like, that's how
swiping Tinder.
Swiping Tinder. That's how, like Vic just said. Oh no, Vic was saying. Oh no, Vic said like me in our chat, but he said something before. I thought he was saying that he scrolls like that, but he was saying that red zone is for fantasy people.
So look, we'll talk a lot about the Frozen Frenzy tomorrow, Johnny. Obviously, we'll see what goes tonight. We'll see how it looks. I know Pat Maroon's going to join us at some point this week. Yeah. We also are working on a big NHL player guest for tomorrow. Johnny's working on this.
Well, he's coming on the show. We just don't know if it's gonna be live or if it's gonna be pre-recorded.
Okay.
So tomorrow we will be talking to him. We just don't know if it's live or we're gonna air it Thursday.
All right, and we're not gonna tell you who it is yet. So keep an eye on our social media. We'll tell you this: he's a goalie in the National Hockey League, and a lot of people are talking about him right now. And we're just gonna leave it at that, so your mind can go wild. And I do want to quickly hit a couple of other things before we get to Bet365, Johnny. Yep. I do want to hit on the game last night between.
I was going to say, we're not going to give the Leafs love.
We have to talk about the way the Toronto Maple Leafs came in to, and not came in, but played against Tampa last night and bullied Tampa. Like, they bullied the Tampa Bay Lightning, who have looked good this year. They have looked good. But, you know, they looked like a Craig Berube team last night, in my opinion, for the first time, because you combine offense, you combine physicality, you combine puck management, you know, you combine face-offs, D-zone coverage, not giving up the house. I mean, they really looked like they were clicking on all cylinders last night. Like, you know, they look like a team that could win a cup. Now, granted, it's October, so, like, what are we talking about? But they did look like a very complete hockey team last night, and I was impressed.
Carter Hutton called me an idiot for picking them to win the President's Trophy. They look pretty damn good right now, and I would love to have Carter back on here maybe next week so we could get a little update on how he feels about the Leafs, if that's possible. But that second line of Bobby McMahon, Max Domi, and Willie Nylander, they look dominant. I didn't look at what their chances for versus chances against were, but it felt like they were creating offense the entire game. And, I don't know if you wanted to break down the clip. Did you want to break down Bobby McMahon's play to Nylander?
Well, I just think, look, I'd love to show this video, and obviously Nylander scores the goal here. But the reason I wanted to show that Nylander goal and the play that Bobby McMahon makes is because that's the kind of stuff that it takes to win in the playoffs and have a deep run. And that's the type of mentality that you need. You need guys that are constantly willing to sacrifice for the betterment of the team. And, that means taking a massive hit in order to make a play and putting yourself in danger, in order to basically put your teammate into a better scoring opportunity. And you kind of saw that all over the ice last night, with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I know we were kind of talking about it in our pre-show meeting on this play in particular. And I just thought, this is a great example of a team that is evolving and realizing that, perimeter play and high sort of boat racing type of hockey is not going to be successful in the playoffs. So you've got to start now. You have to start setting a standard as the way you play in October. And it sounds like the footage we have of this goal is way too choppy, but it was on that Nylander goal where McMahon gets absolutely smoked by Lilleberg in the neutral zone. He opens his body up to take the hit in order to make the play, and then Nylander grabs the puck and he goes in. And I thought it was a soft goal by Vasilevsky.
It was.
But still, it's sacrificing your body, getting smashed in order to get your team an opportunity, and they open up the lead, and it kind of, that was it. Like, after that play and that goal, that game never got back into the hands of Tampa. And it sounds like Vic has the footage teed up for us now, and it's not nearly as choppy. But you see this in the neutral zone right here. Boom. Okay. I mean, it's like, thank you to the footage for Amazon, but that is one of those plays where, like, that hurts if you're McMahon. You just got drummed.
I also think if we can pull it back up, though, Vic, really quick, I do think that Lilleberg is frustrated here and takes himself out of the play by finishing that hit. Like, I thought it was a stupid play. He's obviously, pissed at himself for losing the puck in the spot that he lost the puck. But after he loses it, he's not even worried about the puck. All he wants to do is finish McMahon, and then he allows a 2-on-1 to happen behind him. Like, watch him right here. He's not even worried about the puck at all.
Yeah.
He has no idea what's going on behind him.
Both things can be true, right? But
I'm not saying McMahon didn't make a great play. He did, but Lilleberg was not concerned at all about what was happening behind him. After he lost that puck, he was like, fuck this guy, I'm finishing this hit.
And I don't have to be on the bench to know that every guy looked at each other, including the coaching staff, and said, that's taking a hit to make a play. That is a phrase that is used on an NHL and on every bench in hockey, period. Take a hit to make a play. And I guarantee you that those types of things are going to help this team win when it gets nice again in 6 months. And they have to be put in now. You can't just flip a switch. And, Singsy's comment in the chat, that play is loved in the locker room. That play is loved. And that play will show up on film when they do team film. And, that's the kind of stuff that Toronto needs to completely own and become, because we already know about the offense. And then let's do the OEL hit, Johnny, and then we'll move into Bet365 and we'll wrap the show. But
there's one more guy though, Colby. There's one more guy that we got to give love to also.
Who? Anthony Stolarz?
Anthony Stolarz. I mean, his numbers so far this season, that performance last night, unbelievable. Yeah. But let's do OEL, and then I don't know, we can give Stolarz his flowers after. But yeah, this hit, what did you make of it? Because I know you wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, so like I didn't, I agree with the fact that it was 2 minutes. I mean, I don't think it should have been 5 minutes. And you kind of see, like, if you could pause it, Vic, right here, his butt and his back, like that is
he works on Gensel's face.
It's a body check, right? Like, and Gensel kind of leans into it. And of course, you hate seeing a guy get caught up high there, but by no means did I think that should have been a 5-minute penalty. It's a reverse hit. It's completely legal. I don't know. Like, I didn't have a big problem with that. The Tampa broadcast thought it should have been 5 minutes and a hit to the head. I totally disagreed with that. I don't know what your thoughts are.
I mean, listen, I thought he caught Gensel reaching. But again, like, part of that is on Gensel too. If you're going in for a 50-50 puck, you have to brace yourself for a hit. Like, it's a physical game. Guys are going to do that. I've never actually seen someone throw a reverse hit like that, to be honest, like where he backed his ass into Gensel.
Can you show it again and maybe try to stop it? Because we have people in the chat that feel like he jumped. And I know I've said this before, like when two people hit each other and you're on skates, you're mostly on 1 foot when you're skating. Like, yeah, here he's going backwards, so he's on 2 feet, but I don't really think he jumped. I mean, we're kind of going to get a good look at it right here. Like, when you are moving fast and you lower and you push your body weight into someone, the contact of a hit brings you up off the ice for a very brief period of time. I don't think he jumped. Like, to me, he didn't jump. Singsy, do his feet come up a little bit? Yeah, I think you can make that argument. And this is a video courtesy of FD Sports Network, but I don't see like a jump here. I think you're transferring weight. Okay. Yeah. He comes off the ice after. Okay.
After contact.
Yeah. And that happens on a lot of hits. That happens pretty regularly in the National Hockey League because guys are moving 250, 30, 20 pounds at 15, 18 miles an hour. Like, when collision happens, your feet are going to come up off the ground at times. So I don't disagree with you that his skates come up, Singsy, but I do not agree that he jumped. I really don't.
Yeah, and the call on the play, which Peter Lou just wrote in the chat, was interference, actually, which it wasn't. I don't know what you would have called that, though. Maybe like a rough. I don't know. Listen, reverse hits are a big part of the game. That was just a weirdly thrown one. Because you don't see a guy go ass first. The only other hit I can think of that reminded me of that, which is a little different because it was more open ice, was PK Subban on Brad Marchand like a long time ago. If you remember when PK was in Montreal, he kind of like backwards skated into Marchand and laid him out. But yeah, you just don't see OEL or people in general throw a hit like that. But OEL is another guy too to talk about because him and Chris Tanev have just helped transform that identity in Toronto too, right? They become a much tougher team to play against. And listen, whether you like the hit or not, seeing Toronto throw a hit like that, yeah, I'm all for it.
They bullied Tampa. Tampa normally bullies them. Like, Tampa doesn't get a good enough reputation for being bullies. They're bullies. Like Kucherov and those guys, they play like bullies. Now you got McDonough back. I also think Jake McCabe, like, what a great trade that was for both sides. He's really done well there. So, look, the Toronto Maple Leafs look like the real deal. They don't look like the boat race, high-flying Globetrotters. They look like a team that could win when it matters right now. And look, Stolarz has been great. I just think they need to be careful not to overdo it with Stolarz. That's all I will say. I know he's had some health issues with his knees. He's a great guy. I got to know him pretty well when he was here in Philadelphia. Again, I was actually on the ice with him this year before he went to training camp. Great guy. And I'm rooting for him, but I think they need to make sure they manage his minutes. But we'll keep an eye, we'll keep an eye on the Toronto Maple Leafs because, again, the regular season doesn't mean anything. It's all about what they do when the weather gets nice. That's the only thing that matters in Toronto.
Not true, because you can get a banner if you win the regular season, just like us in New York.
Right,
But let's go to
Bet365.
Let's go into our bet of the day, and there are going to be a lot of bets today. I just want to say also, I will be taking the over in the first period, not only in this game between the Rangers and the Montreal Canadiens, which is our bet of the day, but I'm taking the over in the first period in every single game today, just because it's been a trend in the NHL. 55 of the 90 games that have been played have gone over in the first period. That's a little bit over 61%. I'm not saying it's always profitable, because the odds are sometimes minus 130, so it could even out if you do win most of your bets in that particular pick. But it's a fun bet to watch. The first periods are always exciting, and it's a nice little short sweat. But with the Rangers and Montreal specifically, the Rangers are averaging 1.60 goals scored in the first period. Montreal is giving 1.33 up against in the first period. My concern is that, depending on who starts in net, which probably will be Igor Shesterkin, is that the Rangers are only allowing 0.40 goals against in the first period, but Montreal has been scoring 1.33 goals in the first period. So both teams can score in the first, the Rangers especially. Montreal's defense isn't the strongest. I do think the Rangers will at least get one in the first period. They could get two, and I'm not rooting for it necessarily, but we're going to hope that Montreal can find a way to get one as well. So that's going to be our bet for tonight. It hit last night, the over in Tampa and Toronto. But that's going to be our bet of the night. The Rangers and Montreal Canadiens over in the first period. And that's been a trend in the NHL. So make sure you're following those picks, because I'll be taking all 16 overs in the first period on top of other stuff, which I'll tweet throughout the day. But that's brought to you by Bet365. Remember to open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets, whatever the sport, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. So use our code Daily365. Colby, any final thoughts before we wrap up today's show?
No, look, I'm excited. Clear your schedules tonight, because what is it, 6:30 Eastern? I know for you, Beard, for you, Jeremiah, you've got like hockey from like 1 p.m. to 10 p.m. today. So you'll be in heaven out there in Alaska. Enjoy the Frozen Frenzy tonight. We'll have a lot of games to talk about. Chef Richard, I saw your question in the chat about Tampa. Let's table that, and let's wait for a day where there's not a lot going on, because I think that's a really interesting point to talk about. Keep with us here. Like we said, tomorrow we're going to have a big guest. We don't know whether he's going to be live or it's something we're going to pre-record tomorrow and we're going to put it on the show Thursday. But watch Johnny's social media, because once it's all confirmed when we're going to have it, he will put it out there. But as we said, it's a starting goalie in the National Hockey League, and a lot of people are talking about this guy right now. So
I should know by like 10:30 p.m. if we'll be live tomorrow or not.
So kudos to Johnny for making this happen. We'll give him credit where credit is due, and we got to give him some love, because it's been a rough 12 hours for the big fella. We'll tell him to get back out on that horse, not tonight, but tomorrow, because we need him watching hockey tonight. We'll be with you all tomorrow, 9 a.m. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you then.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Seravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.